Hello, this is Stuart Taylor. Welcome to lecture number 8, which is about physical security. Later in the course you will learn about many of the logical aspects of information security. This lecture focuses on physical security, which is just as important as all of the logical security systems that you may apply. So what is physical security? And why is it important? If you implement proper, robust, logical controls, you'll be safe, right? Wrong. You can spend as much time and as much money on logical controls as you want. But if an attacker can get physical access to your systems with the right tools and enough time, they can bypass the logical controls that you've put in place. And your confidential data could be laid bare. By the way, you'll still need all the logical controls too, because physical and logical security should work together to provide comprehensive protection in depth. Neither of these things are good enough on their own. We'll now look at two key physical security concepts: site security and computer security. First, we'll look at site security. Access control is an important physical security concept. It's a term often confused with logical access control, and they do share some similarities. In the context of physical security, however, access control is the process of restricting physical access to only authorized personnel. This is something we do every day in our lives. For example, you only have a few sets of keys to your house. Only people authorized by the homeowner gets to keep a copy, probably family or maybe some close friends. You may use a baby gate to stop a toddler falling down the stairs. These are both simple applications of access control. The differences are: at home, you're protecting your personal belongings and your assets, and your access control systems are likely to be less sophisticated. Whereas in the business world, the assets are different, for example, systems, equipment, data, and so on. And the access control systems can be really quite complex. Defense in depth is another physical security concept. It refers to the use of multiple layers of security to protect your assets. If an attack is successful against one layer, there's another layer for the attacker to penetrate. Therefore, physical premises are broken into distinct areas or zones. You can see from the diagram how this looks. Physical security starts with the outer perimeter. We then have maybe a guard desk or reception area, which is sandwiched in between the outer perimeter and an internal perimeter. After that, we would have maybe a data center, server room, and the middle layer that we're protecting here is where you have your actual equipment, servers, routers, switches, etc., in locked racks or cabinets. Any attacker wishing to get physical access to those servers, switches, routers, etc., will have to breach the outer perimeter, the guard desk or reception, the internal perimeter mechanisms, get access to your data center, and then break into your rack. So there's multiple layers here for any attacker to get through before you become vulnerable. We'll start with the outer perimeter. This really is the first line of defense. The security measures that are applied here will vary depending on the level of protection you require. Common security measures include things like security cameras, lighting for the parking lot, perimeter fencing, either manned or unmanned security gates, and guard patrols, maybe with guard dogs, maybe even armed personnel. A note on security cameras. Monitoring cameras is a very resource intensive and expensive thing to do, and therefore most organisations don't employ people to watch over them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In the most case, security cameras and CCTV are used to make recordings of secure areas, but they're used to analyse what's happened after a security incident has taken place to establish the facts. The internal perimeter really starts with the building walls, the exterior doors, etc. that provide access to the internal premises. Now, common security measures here include locks to doors, windows, the locking of desks, the locking of filing cabinets, etc. Keypads, security cameras, badge readers, guard or reception desks, smoke detectors, and possibly even turnstiles. And you can see some examples of those things on the screen right now. Turnstiles, such as the ones on screen, are becoming very popular, certainly with the big blue chip organisations. We're back at the principle of least privilege again, because the internal perimeter security that you apply really relies on the principle of least privilege. Certain areas within an organisation's premises will and should be restricted. For example, you do not want necessarily everybody in your IT area, and you don't necessarily want all of your IT people to have access to your server room. HR offices generally have restricted access as well, because the nature of their work usually involves confidential information. I personally have worked in organisations where each floor of an office is restricted only to the people that work on that floor, plus the communal areas. In order to enforce the principle of least privilege on your internal perimeter, you should define the secure areas that need to be restricted. Once they've been defined, you can use a multitude of technologies to secure them, such as badge readers, keypads, and biometric devices such as fingerprint scanners, retinal scanners, etc. Or you might even be interested in more sophisticated solutions such as X-ray scanners, metal detectors, cameras, and intrusion detection systems or alarm systems. So far we've covered the external and internal perimeters. But physical security doesn't stop there. As a member of the IT team, you'll have a number of technology assets to protect too. Equipment such as servers, routers, switches, etc. should be in a secure server room. A secure server room that has a door access control system in place. And the equipment within should be located in secure, lockable racks or cabinets, such as the one pictured on the screen now. These are the last line of defence though. And by the way, try to avoid this scenario. What you can see in this picture is two racks or cabinets that have had both the front doors left off them and the side panels left off. You can see the cabling is really rather scruffy. And anybody getting into this server room will basically have free access to any of the equipment in either of these two racks. Next we'll look at computer security. Usually computer security consists of a number of concepts. These include things like policies, procedures, processes, and the technologies used to secure them. But for the purpose of this lecture, computer security refers merely to physically securing computers. The other concepts are covered, but in other lectures throughout the course. We'll start by identifying three types of computer: servers, desktop computers, and mobile computers. Each of these three categories have slightly different security considerations. Server security, for example, is a little bit different because typically servers are more expensive than other types of devices like desktop PCs, etc. And they're usually located physically close to the users. Ideally, they should be in locked cabinets or racks and then placed in a secure server room. And the physical access to that server room should be restricted. This isn't always possible, and where a secure server room isn't available, secure cables should be used, such as Kensington locks, to attach them to some sort of immovable object, piece of furniture maybe. Desktop computers are mostly left out in open office space, which does make them somewhat vulnerable. They can be locked in under the desk style cages, or they can be secured with Kensington locks. But they're relatively inexpensive compared to servers. And as these days, confidential data is not usually kept on the hard disk of computers, they're often seen as quite low risk. Mobile computers are a bit different. The portability of mobile devices provides a different security challenge. Mobile devices come in various forms, from smartphones and laptops, notebooks, ultrabooks, to PDAs, tablets, phablets, and even music and media players. They're all capable of storing huge amounts of data. Consider a typical smartphone. It's common now to have 32 gigabytes of native storage on a smartphone, and often this can be expanded via microSD to anything up to 64 or even 128 gigabytes. Imagine how much company data can be stored on a device like that. If that smartphone is lost or stolen, any data stored on it is incredibly vulnerable. Because mobile devices are highly portable, they are all vulnerable to loss or theft. There are a number of measures we can take to help protect these devices though. There are some common sense approaches. Keep the device with you at all times. If you're travelling through airport security, for example, make sure that you can always see these items. Use the trunk of your car to store devices. Never leave them out in open view. And when travelling, use the safe that's provided in your hotel room. More specifically, items like Kensington locks or secure cables can be used. You could install theft recovery software which allows you to track your devices. You can buy laptop alarms which are triggered when the laptop is moved or if the Kensington lock cable is broken. And certain items such as BlackBerry devices have a kill switch where you can remotely send an instruction to the phone to wipe it clean in the event that it is lost or stolen. We're still left with something of a problem though, because removable devices such as external hard disks, iPods, iPads, microSD cards, DVDs and USB flash drives are all more difficult to secure. We could password protect them where it's possible, and we could also encrypt them if it's possible. Microsoft BitLocker to Go can help us to do this. We can even restrict the use of USB ports, optical drives and so on through group policies. However, many security experts believe that you should spend less time trying to defend portable devices and use that time and effort on securing the data from authorized access. Which brings us back full circle to the principle of least privilege. If you can restrict employees to only the data they need to do their job, you stand a much better chance of keeping critical data off portable drives. In this lecture we've looked at the importance of physical security, the concepts of site security and computer security, and server, desktop and mobile device security. That concludes lecture number 8. Thank you for watching.